All right, it's good to see you all again. We're going to continue our way through the book of Exodus, starting with chapter 32. We're going to learn about the golden calf. Actually, there's a part of this story that's one of my favorites. Funny, I think. So, Exodus chapter 32, starting at verse 1. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, why was he up on the mountain? Because he was looking for the 10 Commandments. They gathered around Aaron and said, "Come, make us gods who will go before us. As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what had happened to him." Just take a moment to imagine, right? 10 plagues. God saves, brings all of his enslaved Israelites out of Egypt. They cross through the Red Sea on dry land. He provides them quail and manna and water from a rock. And now Moses goes up on the top of the mountain to look for the 10 Commandments, and they're like, "Man, I've been waiting too long. I want a different God." Think about how fast they are. Just gonna leave it. I mean, just totally abandoning God. That is called unfaithfulness. And we all tend to do it. Verse 2. Aaron answered them, "Take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me." So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. And he took what they handed him and made it into an idol cast in the shape of a calf, fashioning it with a tool. Then they said, "These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." No, they weren't, right? No, they weren't. Think about this. It's just so frustrating, isn't it? But so why'd they make a calf? Well, it's a symbol of fertility, okay? Like for those of you who are farmers or ever had livestock, this kind of thing, I mean, that calf is the symbol of something coming, right? Like it's gonna grow up, you're gonna feed it, it's gonna make a lot of money, right? It's going to, and it's gonna have more calves. It's a symbol of fertility. That was the whole idea. Having babies was a good thing. Having more cow babies, calves was a good thing. Having any the whole concept of growing more crops, it was all fertility. It was all multiplying, making you richer, making you stronger, making you healthier, giving you ways to trade with people. That was this whole idea. So if you worship a golden calf, it was like you were saying you were worshiping a god, a type of god that would hopefully bless you and make you more fertile, your family more fertile, your crops more fertile, your cows more fertile. Same idea. Verse 5. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of the calf and announced, "Tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord." So the next day the people rose early and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented fellowship offerings. Afterward they sat down to eat and drink and got up to indulge in revelry. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go down, because your people whom you brought up out of Egypt have become corrupt. They have been quick to turn away from what I commanded them and have made themselves an idol cast in the shape of a calf. They have bowed down to it and sacrificed to it and have said, 'These are your gods, O Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt.' I have seen these people," the Lord said to Moses, "and they are stiff-necked people. Now leave me alone so that my anger may burn against them and that I may destroy them. Then I will make you into a great nation." But Moses sought the favor of the Lord his God. He said, "Why should your anger burn against your people whom you brought out of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he brought them out to kill them in the mountains and to wipe them off the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce anger, relent, and do not bring disaster on your people. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, to whom you swore by your own self, 'I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and I will give your descendants all this land I promised them, and it will be their inheritance forever.' Then the Lord relented and did not bring on his people the disaster he had promised." Think about that. God said, "I'll just destroy all the Israelites and I'll start over again with you, Moses." And what did Moses say? It's like, "No, God, please forgive them." And what did God do? It says he relented. Actually, the word is repented, which is what God calls us to do, to turn around, to turn a different way, to turn back to his people is what he did. So he forgave them. Well, at least he said he was going to work on forgiving them, because that's what's going to happen next. Verse 15. Moses turned and went down the mountain with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hands. They were inscribed on both sides, front and back. The tablets were the work of God. The writing was the writing of God engraved on the tablets. When Joshua heard the noise of the people shouting, he said to Moses, "There is the sound of war in the camp." Moses replied, "It is not the sound of victory. It is not the sound of defeat. It is the sound of singing that I hear." When Moses approached the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, his anger burned, and he threw the tablets of the hand out of his hands, breaking them into pieces at the foot of the mountain. And in one fell swoop, he broke all 10 commandments in one step. Right? It's funny. If it's sort of a religious joke. Who is the one person that broke all 10 commandments in one fell swoop? Moses, when he threw him down and broke him. All right, verse 20. And he took the calf they had made and burned it in the fire. Then he ground it to powder, scattered it on the water, and made the Israelites drink it. I just love this story. It's just great. It reminds me, my dad says that when he was growing up, he spit on the sidewalk, and his dad made him go home and get his toothbrush and wipe or rub it into the spit and brush his teeth with it in order to tell him, don't spit on the sidewalk anymore. Or like, I've heard that people do this as well, like if their dog poops on the, like somewhere they don't want it, like in the house, they rub the dog's face in the poop. Like, gross. Well, that's what Moses did. He burnt up the golden idol of the calf and made him drink it. Ground it into a powder and made him drink it. Verse 22. He said to Aaron, "What did these people do to you that led them into such great sin?" And actually, this is my favorite part of the story. Verse 22. "Do not be angry, my lord," Aaron answered. "You know how prone these people are to evil. They said to me, 'Make us gods who will go before us.' As for this fellow Moses who brought us up out of Egypt, we don't know what happened to him. So I told them, 'Whoever has any gold jewelry, take it off.' Then they gave me the gold, and I threw it into the fire, and out came this calf." I love that. It's like, these people, Aaron says, "They're just horrible. I told them to take off their gold earrings. We threw it into the fire, and poof, this calf came out." I don't know. It's just, everyone's blaming somebody else, right? Moses saw that the people were running wild and that Aaron had let them get out of control, and so became a laughingstock to their enemies. So he stood at the entrance to the camp and said, "Whoever is for the Lord, come to me," and all the Levites rallied to him. Then he said to them, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. Each man strap a sword to his side, go back and forth through the camp from one to the other, each killing his brother and friend and neighbor." The Levites did as Moses commanded, and that day about 3,000 of the people died. Then Moses said, "You have been set apart to the Lord today, for you were against your own sons and brothers, and he has blessed you this day." The next day Moses said to the people, "You have committed a great sin, but now I will go to the Lord. Perhaps I can make atonement for your sin." So Moses went back to the Lord and said, "Oh, what a great sin these people have committed. They have made themselves gods of gold. But now please forgive their sin. But if not, then blot me out of the book you have written." The Lord replied to Moses, "Whoever has sinned against me, I will blot out of my book. Now go, lead the people to the place I spoke of, and my angel will go before you. However, when the time comes for me to punish, I will punish them for their sin." And the Lord struck the people with a plague because of what they did with the calf Aaron had made them. So this is a, crazy story. God does forgive them, but he said there's still consequences. That's important for us all to recognize. God does forgive us, but on this earth, we still might have to deal with consequences, right? I remember reading the story about this guy who had committed murder, and he was on death row. Okay, he was going to be killed for it on what do they call it? The death penalty. But he became a Christian while he was in jail. He was saved, and he was telling other people about Jesus, and he was so excited about it. But you know what? He found out he was still going to be going to receive the death penalty. And there was this article. That's how I was reading this about it. And he said, "I understand. God has saved me for eternal life, but on this earth, I still have to face consequences. There's still a punishment." That's sort of what God is saying. They're still going to get punished. So we're going to go to now, that was Exodus 32. We're going to back up a little bit. I'm not going to talk a lot about this because it's hard for me to just talk about it. It'd be kind of boring to read. But in Exodus verses 25 and 26, it's going to talk about something called the Tabernacle and the Ark of the Covenant. So we've talked about Noah's Ark. All right, Noah's Ark is like this boat, right, that held Noah and his family and all the animals. Well, now we're going to talk about an ark, but it's not a boat. Okay, it's like a box. And in this box, the Israelites are going to carry around this box. And in this ark, it's going to hold three things. Let's see, I haven't looked it up for a while, so let me see if I can remember those three things. In this box, eventually, they're going to put three things. The 10 Commandments, which Moses is going to make again, or God is going to give to him again, because remember, the first set was broken. Number 2, besides the 10 Commandments, it's going to be a staff that Aaron held that miraculously sprouted almonds. Okay, it was a sign of a miracle that God did through Aaron. So it's a staff that Aaron held that sprouted almonds, like an almond tree, like sprouted nuts. Okay, and then the third thing that's in this ark is a piece of manna, like the what is it stuff, the bread from heaven. And it was like a way to show them, like, God has always been with us, God can do miracles, and God is still with us today. But so in chapters 25 and 26, it's talking about the tabernacle and the ark. So the ark is going to be carried around on these long poles. It's made of gold. There's these 2 cherubim, which are sort of like angels on the top. And the tabernacle is like this big tent, like this big area that they'll set up where the ark is going to sit inside. It's kind of like like a church, like a place where God lives. That was the idea, at least, that this is God's house. So we're going to carry him around with us, and wherever we go, God is there with us. He's in the box. He's inside the tent because he's holy, he's set apart from all of us, but still he's with us. So, what I would encourage you to do, and I'll try to find a link, hopefully I'll remember this, to type it in there just to give you an idea of what this looks like. Because chapters 25 and 26 tell you all about how this was made. But the deal was they carried this around with them, and it gave them like victory. It was like God was with them wherever they took this. But we'll talk more about the ark and the tabernacle along the way. It is important. It's hard to really understand just by reading it. Feel free to read it, but it's just a lot of directions on how to make it, In any case, we're going to jump ahead to Exodus chapter 33, verse 18. 33, verse 18. Then Moses said, "Now show me your glory, God. Show me your glory. Show yourself to me," is what he's saying. Verse 19, "And the Lord said, I will cause all my goodness to pass in front of you, and I will proclaim my name, the Lord, in your presence. I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy. I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But," he said, "you cannot see my face, for no one may see me and live." Then the Lord said, "There is a place near me where you may stand on a rock. When my glory passes by, I will put you in a cleft in the rock and cover you with my hand until I have passed by. Then I will remove my hand, and you will see my back, but my face must not be seen." All right, so I kind of like this story. Moses is like, "Hey, you and me, God, we're pals, we're buddies, we're friends. Let me see you in all your glory." And God's like, "Sorry, bud, you're cool and all, but if I do that, you're gonna die. Like you can't handle my glory." That's what he's saying. But he says, "This is what I'll do. You hide yourself in this little hole in the rock, like a little cave, and then I'll pass by all of my glory, and I'll cover you with my hand so you can see my butt." That's what he means by back. It's his backside. So even the reason I do this is because Moses, who was so close to God, like best friends with God, the best he could do is see God's butt, okay? His rear end, his backside. God is that amazing. None of us are going to ever be able to see God that glorious, but we can see Jesus face to face, and that's what that's what they saw when Jesus was on earth. And one day we will see Jesus face to face as well. All right, so there's so much in Exodus I would love to tell you about, but I don't have time. So we're going to move past Exodus and go to Leviticus. Leviticus is a chapter that's very hard to read through because it's full of laws. You got the 10 Commandments, sure, but now we're talking about all kinds of laws. They have laws for everything you can imagine. How to ask God for forgiveness. It's about sacrificing animals. This is something I should mention just a little bit about. But see, God said when you sin, you can't go to heaven anymore. Sorry, right? He is holy. He is special. He is amazing. Heaven is a great place. And if you sin, even one time, you don't belong there. Hey, you're condemned. If you deserve to die is the point. Okay. But because God shows graciousness and forgiveness, he said, instead of killing you for sinning, he will accept blood some other way. So he said, sacrifice an animal in your place so that he'll see the death of the animal and say, I forgive you. You don't have to die because the animal died. And he was actually quite gracious in this because he said, what if you're poor and you don't, what if you only have one lamb? You don't want to kill the one lamb. One sin, one lamb, that's over, right? Where are you going to get more lambs? So he said, if you can't afford a lamb, can't afford a ram, get a lamb. If you can't get a lamb, get a goat. If you can't get a goat, use a turtle dove. If you can't use which is a bird, can't afford a bird, take some grain and burn it up. It's got to be some type of sacrifice, though, okay? It talks all about that. All about the different ways you can sin and all kinds of things. But there's all kinds of things in this that feel like they don't really apply anymore, like that, like sacrificing animals. But there are other things that do. Like in Leviticus, in Leviticus 18 or 19, we'll do 19. It's just various laws, right? In verse 3, it says, each of you must respect his mother and father, and you must observe my Sabbaths. I am the Lord your God. 19:4, do not turn to idols or make gods of cast metal for yourself. I am the Lord your God. Those are two rules that we've already heard in the Ten Commandments, right? That makes a lot of sense. Let's see. Let me find one, though, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Well, here you go. Verse 19. Leviticus 19:19. Keep my decrees, he says. Do not make different kinds of animals. Do not plant your field with two kinds of seed. Do not wear clothing woven of two kinds of material. What? Right, so that's saying like a burro or a donkey. I think a donkey and a horse, if they mate, it makes a mule. That's what it is. He says that's against the law. He says if you plant corn and beans in the same field, that's against the rule. If you make polyester, which is a clothing made of cotton and what is it? Well, it's a blend. Okay, well, that's a sin too. It's like, why is that a sin, right? I mean, it's hard to understand. There's a reason, but I can't get into it right now. But I mean, it was like you don't want two different things in one. Okay, they're two different. Okay. So that doesn't make sense. But then, so some people are like, let's just throw Leviticus out. Leviticus, it's stupid. It has all these rules that don't matter to us anymore. It doesn't apply to us anymore. But if you go to the very first beforehand, Leviticus 19:18, you should probably underline this one. It says, do not seek revenge or bear a grudge against one of your people, but love your neighbor as yourself. I am the Lord. Love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus will say that this is the most important law in the entire Bible. If we could just do this, everything would be done. Like, if you can get that through your head, to love your neighbor as yourself, you understand everything. All right? So you have to understand Leviticus has a lot of rules in it. Some apply still, some don't. But it's important, and there are very important laws in here. Okay? All right, so I would encourage you, if you're gonna read 19 and 20, if you want to read here. There's a lot of verses in here about sexual boundaries, like we're not supposed to have sex with our parents, right? We're not supposed to have sex with an animal, right? I mean, these still apply, but there are other sexual boundaries that some people would say now don't apply. So I'm not going to get all into that right now, but I think that it matters that we think about that. And why is it that some apply and some don't? So, I want you to now go to the book of Numbers. Numbers chapter 11. Chapter 11, starting at verse 4 is where we're going to start. Let's see, 11, 4 through 6. The rabble, so Numbers, book of Numbers, chapter 11, verse 4. The rabble with them began to crave other food, and again the Israelites started wailing and said, "If only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost, also the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna." Remember how God provided the manna for them? Bread from heaven, and now they're like, I want a cucumber. The reason I point this out is that they just don't seem to learn. They just don't seem to get it, that God is taking care of them and loves them and he keeps trying, and they just don't seem to get it. And the reason it's important to recognize this is that hopefully you recognize it in yourself too. We're the same. And when we read it in the Israelites, we're like, they frustrate me. Well, guess what? We frustrate God too. We're going to continue at verses 10 through 15. Moses heard the people of every family wailing, each at the entrance to his tent. The Lord became exceedingly angry, and Moses was troubled. He asked the Lord, "Why have you brought this trouble on your servant? What have I done to displease you that you put the burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? Why do you tell me to carry them in my arms as a nurse carries an infant to the land you promised an oath to their forefathers? Where can I get meat for all these people? They keep wailing to me, 'Give us meat to eat.' I cannot carry all this people by myself. The burden is too heavy. Too heavy. If this is how you're going to treat me, put me to death right now. If I have found favor in your eyes, and do not let me face my own ruin." The point of me reading this to you is just to say Moses, our hero of faith, he's a whiner too. He's like, woe is me. I have to lead all these people. I have to lead all these people. They're always complaining. Come on, Moses. Put on your big girl panties. It's just, let's get over this. But anyway, we're just like that too. Verse 18. It says, tell the people. So it's 11:18. Tell the people, consecrate yourselves in preparation for tomorrow when you will eat meat. The Lord heard you when you wailed. If only we had meat to eat. We were better off in Egypt. Now the Lord will give you meat, and you will eat it. You will not eat it for just 1 day, or 2 days, or 5, 10, or 20 days, but for a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and you loathe it, because you have rejected the Lord who is among you and have wailed before him, saying, "Why did we ever leave Egypt?" So God kind of gets angry. He says, "I'll give you meat. I'll give you so much meat it's going to come out your nose." I love this kind of stuff. It is great. And then verse 31. Now a wind, same chapter, 11:31. Now a wind went out from the Lord and drove quail in from the sea. It brought them down all around the camp to about 3 feet above the ground, as far as a day's walk in any direction. All that day and night, and all the next day, the people went out and gathered quail. No one gathered less than 10 homers. Then they spread them out all around the camp. But while the meat was still between their teeth, and before it could be consumed, the anger of the Lord burned against the people, and he struck them with a severe plague. Therefore the place was named Kibroth Hattaavah, because there they buried the people who had craved other food. So God punishes them. What's a plague? It's a disease that kills a lot of people. You might say it's a pandemic, right? Or it's an epidemic. It's like the coronavirus. COVID-19 would be considered a plague in some way, I guess. Not quite that bad, but lots of people are dying. Okay. So let's move on to Numbers chapter 13. We're going to start at verse 1. The Lord said to Moses, "Send some men to explore the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. From each ancestral tribe send one of its leaders." So, at the Lord's command, Moses sent them out from the desert of Paran. All of them were leaders of the Israelites. How many tribes of Israel were there? Do you know? How many children did Jacob have? 12. So there are going to be 12 of these people sent out. They're going to jump ahead to 13, verse 17. When Moses sent them to explore Canaan, he said, "Go up through the Negev and into the hill country. See what the land is like, and whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. What kind of land do they live in? Is it good or bad? What kind of towns do they live in? Are they unwalled or fortified? How is the soil? Is it fertile or poor? Are there trees in it or not? Do your best to bring back some of the fruit of the land." It was the season for the first ripe grapes. So they went up and explored the land from the desert of Zin as far as Rehob. They went up through the Negev and came to the Hebron. I'm going to jump ahead to verse 23. When they reached the valley of Eshcol, they cut off a branch bearing a single cluster of grapes. 2 of them carried it on a pole between them, along with some pomegranates and figs. And at the end of 40 days, it says in verse 25, they returned from exploring the land. So they had grapes there so big that 2 guys had to carry it on a pole. Like, I'm thinking a grape is like this big. Grapes must have been like this big. Okay, they're pretty big. Verse 26 will continue. They came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. There they reported to them and the whole assembly and showed them the fruit of the land. They gave Moses this account. We went into the land to which you sent us, and it flows with milk and honey. Here is its fruit. But the people who live there are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. We even saw descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the Negev. The Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites live near the sea and along the Jordan. Then Caleb silenced the people before Moses, since we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can certainly do it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we can't attack those people. They are stronger than we are. And they spread among the Israelites a bad report about the land that they had explored. They said, the land we explored devours those living in it. All the people we saw there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak, come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. So what's happening? God sends them to spy out the promised land. Okay? This is the land God is taking them to be in. And it says the land flows with milk and honey. What does that mean? Well, milk, it's coming from cattle, okay, or from goats. The idea is, it's a place where they're going to be fed well. If a cow eats really good, lush grass, alfalfa or whatever, right? It wants to eat all that. It'll make lots of milk. And then honey, what's that talking about? Well, where does honey come from? Bees. What do bees do? Well, they fertilize things. They go around from plant to plant and they make them grow better. For instance, if you remember in Grow, we order from Heifer International, and you can order bees. And if you have bees and you put them by your crops, they make your crops yield more. So what he's saying is this land is going to be so fertile. It's going to have such great harvests. You and your families are going to be taken care of. So they go out and they see, these are big grapes, right? This is a great place, but they're scared because the people there are giants. I don't know how big they were. The Nephilim, the Anak, were considered giants, really big. So they said, we just feel like grasshoppers around these big people. We shouldn't do it. But Caleb is one of these people that says, we should go. We should go because God's with us. And it doesn't matter how tall the people are, or how big they are, God will give us victory over them. Unfortunately, the Israelites, guess who they listened to? They listened to the people who were complaining. And what ends up happening is that God punishes them and says, from now on, they can't go to the promised land. Because of that, they won't trust him. None of that generation, all that generation has to be dead. And then when all their kids have grown up, then he'll let them into the promised land. Except for Joshua, who is Moses' servant, and this guy named Caleb, who wanted to trust God. So we're almost done. We're going to go to Numbers chapter 20, because this is just a quick story that we kind of need to cover before we're done, because it's going to matter. Okay, 20 chapter 1. In the first month of the whole Israelite community, they arrived at the desert of Zin, and they stayed at Kadesh. There Miriam died and was buried. Now there was no water for the community, and the people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron. They quarreled with Moses and said, if only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. Why did you bring the Lord's community into this desert, that we and our livestock should die here? Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? And then I'm going to jump ahead to verse 7. 20, verse 7. The Lord said to Moses, take the staff, and you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together. Speak to that rock. I just want to make sure you know. Speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water. You will bring water out of the rock for the community, so they and their livestock can drink. So Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence just as he commanded him. He and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock, and Moses said to them, "Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock?" Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff, and water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. Yay! Just like before, right? No. God got angry with Moses. Why? Moses hit the rock twice, and out came the water. Is that what God told him to do? No. God told him to speak to the rock. Moses didn't trust God. And so this is what happens. Verse 12. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them." For that one mistake, Moses doesn't get to go to the promised land either. Because he didn't trust God. It seems pretty harsh to me. Yeah, I get it. But that's what the Bible says about it. That's why Moses and all the rest of the Israelites in that generation, they were not allowed to go into the promised land. The final thing, I wonder if I have enough time here. It's chapter 21 of Numbers, verse 4. They traveled from Mount Hor along the route to the Red Sea to go around Edom, but the people grew impatient on the way. They spoke against God and against Moses and said, "Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the desert? There is no bread, there is no water. We detest this miserable food." Then the Lord sent venomous snakes among them. They bit the people, and many Israelites died. The people came to Moses and said, "We sinned when we spoke against the Lord and against you. Pray that the Lord will take the snakes away from us." So Moses prayed for the people. The Lord said to Moses, "Make a snake and put it on a pole. Anyone who is bitten can look on it and live." So Moses made a bronze snake and put it up on a pole, and then anyone who was bitten by a snake looked at the bronze snake and he lived. All right, quickly. I don't have much time here. So he put this, I want you to think of there's this symbol that doctors at a medical place that they hold that looks like a staff with a serpent around it. That's what it's referring to. Like that's the medicine, people that get better. It started here in Numbers chapter 21, okay? That people would look at the snake and they would be healed from their disease. And that reminds us of one final thing that hopefully I can get through before the video ends. When Jesus was raised up on the cross, when we look to him and put our trust in him, we are saved from our sins. We are healed from our diseases. We are saved. And it's just like that. It's like a vision of what's going to happen in the future. So, we got through all of that, hopefully. I only get 33 minutes and the video is done. So, hope you enjoyed the video and check out the notes below. Have a great day. Bye-bye.